Okay, guys, hey, welcome back. This is Wagari. Uh, Today we'll continue our chapter 2 of database system. Okay. Bagana gande bitan gara channel kanatti kun Waggaariidha. Ramo chapter 2 database system fundamentals of database system walii wajjiniin ilaalla. Yeroo darbe course syllabus or course outline koorsii kanaa keessatti wantoota baay'ee walii wajjiniin discuss gooneerra. Itti fufee chapter 1 keessatti waan hundumaa walii wajjin ilaaluu yaadneerra. Definition database, introduction to database system walumaa gala chapter 1 keessatti cover gooneerra akkuma isin yaadattani. Isaanis waa'ee general database fundamentals of database system introduction ilaallee walii wajjin keessatti data maal akka ta'e information maal akka ta'e. What you mean by data? What you mean by information? How we are going to generate meaningful data from meaningful information from unstructured or raw materials of data, big data. And also we have stated what we mean by database, database management system, software, metadata, description about data, and the general functions of database, the general functions of database management system software, characteristics of database systems, and after we have generally discussed about the users of database, okay, based upon their interaction with the database, the actor on the skin, the users that are going to use our database, and the environment of the database management system. I've covered in chapter 1. Now today we are continuing our chapter 2. Our chapter 2 is database system architecture. Okay, we are generally going to discuss about the design and the architecture of our database system. What's the design of the database system is going to be looks like, what structures and what component, what data models coming with each other, structured with each other, make some relationship and bring our database system architecture. Is about our today's chapters. Chapter kana keessatti database system architecture inni jennu chapter 2 kuni data architecture database maal akka fakkaatu designing structure isaa maal akka fakkaatu componentota akkam akkamii objectota akkam akkamiitu walitti dhufanii database system architecture akka chapter kana keessatti ilaalla. Yoo isinitti tole channel kana achumaan hiriyoota keessan kan biraa akka conceptiitti hiriyoota keessa biraa akka ga'uuf share gochuu hin dagatina. Channel kana subscribe gochuu hin dagatina isiniin jedha. So let we continue our chapter. The chapter 2 is about database system architecture. Okay, in this chapter we will see some content. The content of our today chapter is going to be, we will discuss about definition of database architecture. What do we mean by database architecture? Why we need to use database system architecture? We will discuss in these chapters how components come with each other and make the database architecture, and also how we are going to define, how we are going to give a meaning for the database system architecture or database architecture. By continuing to see this, we will see about level of schema architecture. Itti fufee maal ilaalla? Database schema level in database schema maal maalidha? Level gurguddaa sadii as keessatti ni ilaalla. Isaanis external level, the user area, user interface area, the conceptual level, what data is going to be stored in the database, data akkamiitu database keenya keessatti store ta'uuf akka deemani. Internal level schema level, how we are going to how we are storing the data in the database. Generally means that the physical structure of our data in the database means that the storage areas they are going to carry in our storage device, and also how we are going to allocate the space for our data in the database storage. Continuing to this case, we will see data models. How we are, what's the structure of the data is going to be looks like, and what constraints the data is going to be obey, the rule and regulation the data is going to follow, and what functional some data is going to do. Data model kanan ilalla. Database schema and instances. Database schema and instance maal database instance maal akkana ta'een ilalla. Means that the database schema is database definition or database structures. The description of the database or the structures of the database in general, and the database instance or means that is the state of the database, the occurrence of the database. We will see in these chapters. And also continuing to this, we are going to see what difference between schema and instances. What I mean by schema, we are going to differentiate them from each other. How we are going to differentiate database schema and the instances. But for example, in the schema, it is changing frequently. It's the external it is a design structure instance. Means we every time we insert and update the data, since the instant and is changed from time to time. As soon as we insert, update, or delete the data from our database, how they are going to be differentiated from each other, we will see it. And also continuing to this, we'll see data independence is an important one. When we change the conceptual part of the database, how it is going to be independent from the physical part or internal part. And also when we change the physical or internal part, how it is going to be independent from the external part. Is that the change of one level is independent from the change of the other level. When we alter or change the one level, it is not do not affect our other levels of the database. Okay, we'll see this topic in this chapter 2. Continuing to the database language. What type of language we are going to use in our database? There are big database languages, data definition language, and data manipulation languages. Okay, by using data definition languages, how we are going to designing our database, just like the language like the query, like create, drop, and alter, how we are going to use in this data definition language. And in data manipulation language, it is general query we are accessing in our database, just like update, delete, insert, and it is going to be categorized under data manipulation language. Continuing to this, we will see database interface. Means that the database interface is the user interface of our database. How we are going to, how the user is going to interact with the database. This is the user interface. There are many different user interface of our database. The menu-based user interface is there. The form-based user interface is there. The graphical user interface is there. There are parametric interface is there, and some other user interfaces are available. So generally, let we see them one by one. What is database architecture? Let me give you one minute and let you write something. The concept, what you will be return for this question. Okay? Try something. Okay, we come back. Database architecture is a set of specifications, rules, and a process that detect how data is stored in the database and how data is accessed by components of the system. And we define the database architecture. It's a set of specification, rules, processes. These specification, rules, and the process come with each other and detect how data is stored. It is going to display what? How data is making, how data is going to be stored in our database storage. And also it makes what? How data is accessed by what components we are, by using what components we are going to access our databases is from its database storages. The first definition is this. And also we can say it describes the organization of all database objectives. There are many database or many different database objectives. Those objects come with each other, organize each other, and make how they, and also after that the database or its components are going to be organized with each other. They we know what how they work with each other. Then they organized, they can be with each other. So component is integrated to each other's work together. Then by combining with each other, they make what? They make our database integrity, they make our database reliable, they make our database scalable, and they make our database performance. Okay, so we can define database architectures by like this like definition. And another database architecture jechuun jechuudha set of specification rules specification adda addaa walitti dhufanii ruuloon seeronni kompoonentiin sun hordofuu qaban walitti dabalamanii piroosesiin steeppii isaan keessa darbanii hojii hojjetan walitti dabalanii then akkaataa daataan database storage keessatti store ta'u then kompoonentii akkam akkamii objectii programmii software akkam akkamii fayyadamne immoo database keenya storage keessaa useriin fetch goone akkamitti fayyadamnu kuni database architecture jedhama jechuudha. Gaafa architectureonni kompoonentoonni kun integrate ta'anii walitti dhufanii from the user up to the database storage akkamittiin akka isaanii walitti hidhatiinsa qabaatanii kompoonentiin sun wal keessa darbanii daataa keenya akkamiin access goonuu taasisan jechuudha. Walumaa gala gaafa kompoonentiin kun seeraan organize ta'anii walii wajjin walitti hidhatanii hojjetan daataan keenya reliable nuu ta'a, scalable nuu ta'a, performance nuu ta'allee high performance nuu ta'a jechuudha. Continuing to this, we will see what is this levels of database schema. There are, as we have said in previous, there are 3 levels of database schema. Those are, there are 3 levels of database schema. The first one is external schema. The second one is for external schema is the user view of the database. The user, how user are going to be interact with the database. The external part that user is going to click and interact with the database. This external view describes what? Describes the part of the database that's relevant to the particular users. Can I tune a camera? Bakke do user in Kenya click goone user in Kenya interact duutaa gukaa goone user interface party warra fayyadamne database Kenya access goone kuni maal jedhamu database schema kana keessa external level of database schema. And also different users have their own customized view of the database independent of the other users. Means that when one user is available in one side and another user is available in another side, those users are independent from each other for using this database. They are going to use their view of their own interface. They are independent from each other. Okay. Useriin adda addaa bakka adda addaa irra ta'anii kompoonentii adda addaa waan fayyadaman walirratti hirkatanii jiran jechuudha. Gaafa inni userii inni tokko fayyadamu userii isa tokko irraa dhiibbaan geessisu kan userii isa tokko irratti jijjiirama hin fidu jechuudha. The second component of level of database schema is conceptual schema. This generally describes how data is going to be stored in the database, okay? Or what data is going to be stored in the database. This conceptual schema describes what data is stored in the database and relationship among the data. Conceptual schema kana keessatti data akkamiitu database keenya keessatti store ta'a and walitti dhufeenyi data waan achi keessatti store ta'ani akkamitti primary key fi foreign key database adda addaa table adda addaa keessa walitti akka dhufanii kan adda nu baasu jechuudha. So what data is stored, their relationship is going to be dealt by conceptual database schema. Okay, it is a logical structure of entire database as seen by the database administrator. Logical structure in database conceptual schema, and they also represents what data. This conceptual schema represents all entities, attributes, and their relationships. And then one attributes and their relationships. Okay, relationship is an entity, attribute, relationship. Walitti dhufeenya gidduu isaanii jiru adda nu baasa jechuudha. Nu taasisa jechuudha. Conceptual schema, and also the constraint on the data, and also to represent the semantic information about the data. It represents the security and integrity information. Okay, that's a part of the third level of database schema is internal schema. This describes how data is stored in the database, how data is going to be stored in the database is dealt by the internal data level, internal database schema. Okay, internal level of database schema. Sorry, and also internal database schema level. The physical, it is the physical representation of the database on the computer. Okay, it is the physical representation of the database on the computer. Physically, database in computer irratti akkamitti store ta'u, memory akkamirra akka inni taa'u, allocation store iddoo akkamii akka inni qabatee taa'u level yaadannoo baasudha jechuudha. It is about the data. It is about the data structure and the file organization used to store the data on the storage devices. Structuring data keenya maal akka fakkaatu faayiloonni akkamitti akka organize ta'anii storage device memory ta'uu danda'a, HD hard disk irra ta'uu danda'a, external drive irra ta'uu danda'a, storage device keessatti faayiloon structure keenya maal akka ta'u, dataan keenya structuring isaa maal akka fakkaatu internal leveling. It is concerned with such things as what? Storage space allocation. Akkamitti storage space akkamii daataan hammamii space hammamii akka qabaachuu qabu, storage space akkamitti akka laannuu fi record description for the storage, recording akkanatti describe akka ta'u, record replacement eessa akka keenyuuni, data compression, decreasing the size of the data without losing our data, the content of the data. Okay, data encryption for hiding the detail, or data encryption for making some security. Okay. Okay. It has the series Schema architecture we have discussed. We have said there are three levels of schema: external level, the user interface view; conceptual level, what the data is going to be stored in the database. The third one is the third level is internal level, how data is going to be stored in the database. So the storage spaces in the external view, as you are seeing from this, in the external view, it is what it is in the user interface, okay, where the user is going to be accessed with the database. Then after that, user is going to access what? The conceptual the conceptual part. From the conceptual part, we pass to the internal part, okay, where the data is going to be stored in the storage devices, okay. Generally, diagramming external diagramming three level of database schema kana fakkaata jechuudha. External level kanarratti userii keenyadha. Userii keenya akkamitti access akkamittiin interact akka walii wajjiniin godhaa jirru, akkamittiin database wajjiniin akka interact goonu jechuudha. Conceptual levelin walumaa galatti maal ibsa? Data akkamiitu database keenya keessatti akka kuufamaa jiru, dataan achi keessatti kuufaman sun immoo walitti dhufeenyi isaanii maalidha? Relation akkamii qabu jechuudha. Sadaffani level in sadaffan internal level, how data is going to be stored in the data. Data akkamitti akka stored akka ta'u kan nuuf ibsu sana jechuudha. Walumaa galatti paartiin itti aanu. Kanatti fufee generally toopikii kan biraatti nan hin darbini. Diagraamiin database architecture walumaa galatti maal akka fakkaatu walii wajjin ilaalla. Means that the general diagram of our database for generalizing and for taking the highlight of these chapters. Let me see the architecture of database. Architecture, okay. This database system architecture. There are around 4 big components connected with each other. We have said that on our definition, we have said how it is the structure, how it is about dealing, how the structure and the component come with each other and make our database as usable and very performant one. And there are around 4 big components that come with each other and make database system architecture. So akkuma sirraa ilaalaa jirtan kana kompoonentoonni gurguddaa walitti dhufanii uumaa jiru jechuudha. Database system architecture uumaa jiru jechuudha. For example asirratti maaltu jira? As the first there is a users of the database. Then continuing to these users of the database, database user in kun erga jiraatan jedhanii achii booddee maaltu jira? Query processor jira. How we are going to process our query. Query means nothing. This the question we are asking or the things we are typing on our search bar and accessing the database from the storage. That is all about the query. Okay. Then query processor engine is there. This query processor is there. Then continuing with this query, continuing to the query processor, there is the storage manager. Lastly, the fourth one is the disk storage. So in order for making database system architecture, let me say, wait me. Now database system architecture system for making this database system architecture, you should have to have 4 big components. The first one is users. The users should be available. Then continuing to this user, you should have to have what? The query processors. There are components now. Query processors. Okay. Query processors. Is going to process what? Every type query we are going to processing in our database. Continuing to this query processor, the big component is going to become storage managers. Okay. Third component is storage managers. Then after these 3 components come to each other, the fourth and the final component for making database system architecture is disk storage. The final is a very important one. Disk storage, where our all data is going to be stored in. These 4 things come to each other and make our what? Database system architecture. After displaying them, we will see how they are going to be interact and interconnected with each other. These users there are around 4 basic users. Okay, the first one is as the first there is something such like users. Okay, such like users, naive users, tailors, agents. Naive users were such like tailor, agents, web managers, web users. Those were simply going to access our data by clicking some user interfaces. Okay, then the other user is application programmers. The naive user is going to make what? Use application interface for making what? For accessing the database. The other user application program is going to make what? Write application program. By writing application program, they are going to access the database. Okay. Then sophisticated user. When we say sophisticated user, those is going to generally we can call them as analysis. Those user is going to be very understandable, very important person that can use the database easily. Okay, such like scientists, engineers, and researcher is going to be categorized under this sophisticated users. Okay, the fourth user is database administrators. This is the user part. Okay, then user part in user party naive user warra salphaatti interfeesii user interfeesii database keenya click godhanii agentii tailors warroota web users click user interfeesii database keenya click godhanii warra database keenya itti fayyadaman kun maal jedhamu jechuudha. Isaanii naive users jedhamu jechuudha. Naive users simply application interfeesii database keenya click gochuudhaan itti fayyadamu. The second user is application programmer. Application programmer warri jennu kun programming write gochuudhaan user keenya database keenya itti fayyadamu. Third one is sophisticated users. Query tool fayyadamu. Query barreessuudhaan warra itti fayyadaman. Database administrator immoo maal godhu? Administration tool itti fayyadamanii database keenya access godhu jechuudha. Kuni party user jedha jechuudha. The other part is The other part is what? Query processor. In this query processor, there are different components we will get. Okay, data definition language interpreter is available, data manipulation queries available, compiler and the linker, and application program object codes, application program object called okay. All these things is going to be manipulated what? Query evaluation engines. Okay, these query evaluation engines make what? Evaluate what query this sophisticated user is going to be write. Okay, what query they are writing. Asi query gaafa isaan barreessanii query gaafa isaan barreessanii useroonni kuni query isaan barreessan query evaluated engine kuni query sana evaluate godhee by identifying that query based upon that query it finds the matches the thing from our database, finds the matches and retrieves the result from the database storage. Okay. Then data manipulation, compiler and organizer is there. Those things come with each other and they make what generally known as query processors. Okay. The third component of our database system architecture is storage manager. There are around four basic storage managers. Those are buffer manager is there, file manager is there, authorization and integrity manager is there, transaction manager is there. Okay. By using this buffer manager and file manager, we are going to retrieve what? Our data and the indexes. This index means it is all about the index. Okay. The index based upon the index, we are going to find what as the what place. Simply this index is going used for what? For simply accessing the database. By using that index, at, at simply we will get what at what place our data is going to be available rather than scrolling and finding each and every data. Then authorization and integrity manager is going to be identified our data dictionary, our data distribution. This transaction manager all deal all about the transaction property of the database, just like ACID property of the database. Okay, atomicity, consistency, integrity and durability of our databases. It deals all about this. See? And the fourth component is the disk storage. The disk storage is going to be in this disk storage means storage devices. Storage device bakka data keenyatti achi keessatti waa'ee warra indexii data dictionary kun hundi isaanii disk storage so it looks like this. Componentonni kun hundi walitti dhufanii jalqaba maal qabaachuu qabna? Kompoonentii gurguddaa afur qabaachuu qabna database architecture keenya maqaa waamuudhaaf. Useriin jiraachuu qaba. Then query processoriin jiraachuu qabu. Storage manageriin jiraachuu qaba. Disk storage. Useriin kun warra userii gurguddaa afur. Naive users. Then the second user is going to be what? The second user is application programmer. Application programmer. These are the users is sophisticated users. Sophisticated users should be available. And the fourth, the final user is database administrator. Database administrator should be available. Okay. Database administrator should be available. Okay. Database administrator. These four users we have. Okay. Four users we have. The naive user is going to be interact with the database by clicking some user interfaces. And then applications program is going to be write some application program and access the database. This sophisticated user or the analyst is going to make what? Type and use a query tool for accessing the database. Then this database administrator is going to use what? Database administration tool. In this query processor, we are going to get what? Data manipulation, data definition language interpreter, compiler and the linker, the other one there is query Evaluation engine, okay. Evaluation engine. Those things come each other, and any other thing come each other, and they make query processor. In storage manager, we have four basic storage manager for in order for our making our database system architectures. Those query managers and storage manager is going to be buffer. The buffer should be available. Buffer should be available. File manager should be available. Okay. File manager. File managers. And also we should have what? Integrity should be available. The fourth one is transaction. Transaction. And disk storage, there in disk storage, our general data is available. Data indexes, indices, indexes, statistical data, generally statistical data, and the data dictionary. These all things combined with each other, interacting with each other, and they make what? And they make what? Our database system architecture. Okay? Generally, database system architecture in kind of a database system architecture in kind of a itti kan fufu database system architecture itti fufne are going to see what I've seen three levels of database schema. Now data models. Data models. What do you mean by data models? Let me give you 1 minute and return something. Until button. Okay. Carry. It is a set of concepts to describe the structure of database and certain constructs that database should obey. Structure set of concepti structure database kenya ibsuudha and also certain constraints that our database should be obey. Okay. And also it is what it is a description of the way that the data is stored in the database. Maal godha akkamitti akka daataan database keenya keessatti stored ta'u kan ibsudha jechuudha sattaan immoo data model jechuun. In other words, and also we can say it helps to understand the relationship between entity and to create the most effective structure to hold data. Relationship is an edano base most effective structure database in Kenya, the storage area in Kenya, data hold godhu can no sirreessu jechuudha data model ini. And also it comprises three parts. Those three parts that comprise by data model is structural part, set of rules that constructs the database. Structural part in Kumada, set of rules. Rules seerota akkam seerotatu kan construct database construct gochuuf itti fayyadamnu jechuudha. Manipulation part warra akkasii type of operation to be performed operation amma akkam akkamiitu database keessatti gaggeeffama. Just like insert, update, delete and etc. Drop and etc. Operation on database keessatti manipulation part. Integrity loop which ensures that the data is accurate. The data is going to be accurate. Okay. Data model operation akkam akkamii database keessatti gaggeeffama. Operation for specifying the database retrievals and update by referring to the concepts of the data models. Okay. Operation. And also operations of the data model may include basic operation and user defined operation. User defined operation and also there are basic operations. Okay, it's all about operations on the data models and also category of data models. Generally, category of data models may be conceptual or high level or semantic data models. Provide concepts that are close to the way the many users perceive the data. Also called, we can call them entity based or object based data models. Okay. Is the first type of the first category of data models. Second category of data models is physical low level or internal data models means provide concepts that describes the details of how data is stored in the computers. It provides what? These the details how data is going to be stored in the computers. Implementation or representational data model provides concepts that fall between the above two. Okay, means between the conceptual models and the physical models. So to make balance the user view with the some computer storage detail. There is a user view part, there is storage part. It make what this implementation part is balance the views between users and the storage area of our computers. Okay, our computers. Characteristics of good data models. Amala kami gabashu kaba good data model should be complete. Should be complete with the should have no redundancy. In order for removing his redundancy, we should have to use database normalization through different normalization criteria. We should have to remove data redundancy, and this good data model should have no redundancy. Enforcement of business rules. It should follow the business rules. Okay. If it is not following the business rule of the organization of that database, it is not a good database. So it's enforcement of the business rules. Data reusability. The reusability of our data base is going to should be followed. Communication, integration, stability and flexibility. These all are characteristics of good data models. Okay. Database schema. So our continuing topic in Kenya database schema. What it is? It is a description of the database. Generally, it is the description of the database. Okay. Generally, schema, database schema is a description of the database. This is defined during the database design process. Generally, description in database you want to be can define at this database design process. It includes database structures and the constraints that should hold on the database. Database structure you can include kind of case constraints that should hold on the database. Okay, and also there are three different, we have discussed this, okay? There are three different kind of schema in the database: internal schema, external schema, and conceptual schema. Internal or physical schema, conceptual or logical schema, and external schema. Okay, database instance, we can say database state or occurrence. Okay, database state or occurrence, also called database state or occurrence. It is the actual data stored in the database at the particular moment in time. Data in Dugan at the same time, the moment data in storage database Kenya is the barrisa rusuni, database barris delete bone, update bone. The actual database at the moment you are writing is going to be the database instance or database state. Okay. Every time we insert or delete a record, we change the state of the database. So at the moment what we are writing, the actual data is going to be the database state. Schema versus instance. The difference between this database schema and database instance. The database schema changes very infrequently since it is a structure and the design defined that during the design process of the database, it is changing frequently. Okay, it is not changed from time to time. Whereas database state, since it is the actual database we are writing at the moment of time, it is changed every time the database is updated. It changes every time the database is updated. And also, schema is also called intention. Another, whereas state is called extension. Database state is called extension. Okay. Database independence. The database independent is the ability to modify schema definition in one level without affecting schema definition in next higher level. Okay. Fakkeenyaaf leveling rather level 1, 2, 3 high, top, bottom, and the top, middle, and the bottom leveling yoo jiraate as an example. High level yeroo jijjiiramu, low level irraanitu jijjiiraman geessisin. It is independent from each other. With affecting schema definition in next higher level. That is upper level are unaffected by changes to the lower level. Lower level jijjiiramu, upper level irraan dhiibbaan gahu. Upper level jijjiiramu lower level irraan dhiibbaan geessisu. There are two types of data independency. Logical data independency, This logical data independence is the capacity to change the conceptual schema without having to change the external schemas and their application programs. Okay, the capacity to change the conceptual schema without having to change the external schema. Internal schema gaafa jijjiirru structure internal structure gaafa jijjiirru external structure keenya irraan tu dhiibbaan ga'een internal structure gaafa jijjiirru some modification gaafa geggeessinu is going to be logical independence. Physical data independence is the capacity to change the internal schema without having to change the conceptual schema. Okay, internal schema. Okay, physical schema keenya to conceptual schema irratti miidhaan geessisni gaafa change goonu is all about physical data independence. Okay. Database management system languages. Database management system language warri jennu data definition language DDL and data manipulation language. This data definition language is used by database administrator and the database designer to specify the conceptual schema of the database. Okay. Yeroo baay'ee data definition language kanatti kan fayyadamu database administrator, database designer. Maaliifidha? The conceptual schema of the database keenya ittiin specify gochuuf itti fayyadamu jechuudha. And also in many database management systems, the data definition language is also used to define internal and external schema or views, okay, or structures. Iddoo baay'eetti database management system keessatti iddoo baay'eetti data definition language kana maaliif itti fayyadamna? Internal and external schema define gochuuf ittiin fayyadamna jechuudha. In some database management system, separate storage definition languages and the view definition language, storage definition language kan jedhamuu fi view definition language kan jedhamu jira are used to define the internal and external schemas. Warri kun qofa qofaatti internal fi external schema daadhaaf nu fayyadu jechuudha. Database management tokko tokko keessatti, but rarely it is in some ways, okay. Example, create, use, alter, drop warreen walumaa galatti database create jalqaba gaafa goonu, database use goofu alter gaafa goonu, drop database keenya sana immoo gaafa sinu warra akkasii is going to be operation performed in data definition language. Operation performed in data definition language. Okay, operation akkasii keessatti eegamu jechuudha. The second part is data manipulation language. Data manipulation language is used to specify database retrieval and updates. Generally, database can retrieve gochuuf, access gochuudhaaf, query gochuudhaaf, and updating something is used data manipulation language as the name indicates. Alternatively, standalone data manipulation language command can be applied directly or using through query languages. Example, just like the operation just like select, insert, update, delete. This type of operation performed on the database is generally known as data manipulation language. Okay, data manipulation language. The final topic of our today's classes, our today's video is database management system interface. Okay, database management system. A user interface is the view of the database system, as we have discussed in the previous one. As the user interface is the view of the database system interface that is seen by the users. That is a place where the user is seen and interact with our database. Okay. A user-friendly interface provided by database management system may include the following. User-friendly interface provided by database management system may be menu-based interfaces for web clients or browsing. And the other interfaces, these menu-based interfaces present the users with a list of options. Okay, there is some list of options, or just known as menus. By using that menus, our user is going to be interact with what? Interact with our databases. The second interface is form-based interfaces. Some form is going to be displayed for the users, and the user is going to be fill that form and interacts with the database. Display form to each user. So, okay, user can fill out all the forms and starts to insert a new data. Okay. The continuing user interface of our database is graphical user interface. So most of the time, these graphical user interface contain both of menu-based and form-based interfaces. Okay, displays a schema to the user in diagrammatic form. Okay, this in the as its name indicates as displays a schema to the user in the diagrammatic form. The user then specify a query by manipulating the diagram. In many cases, graphical user interfaces utilizes both menus and the forms. Okay, the combine contain both menu-based and interfaces. The second, the continuing user interface, natural language interfaces. The natural language interface accepts requests written in English or some other language and attempts to understand them. Accepts the language written, then attempts to understand them. Parametric interface. Example, bank tellers use these parametric interfaces for making what? Using function keys, creating accounts, guaranteeing authorizations, setting system parameters, and etc. Okay, changing schemas or access phases. So this is all about our chapter 2, database system architecture. Generally, database system architecture maal akka ta'e ilaalle structure componentoonni adda addaa walii wajjin dhufanii walitti hidhatanii componentoonni suni improper manneridhaan hidhamanii database keenya dizaayinii database keenya ijaaranii database storage keessa access akka itti goonuuf componentoonni gaafa walitti dabalamanii walitti ijaaramanii maal jedhama jechuudha. Database system architecture jedhama jechuudha. Means that database system architecture keenya ijaaruuf immoo maal qabaachuu qabna? Useriin jiraachuu qabu. Userii kanatti dhahanii immoo query processoriin adda addaa jiraachuu qabu. Query processorii kanatti dabalamee immoo storage manageriin jiraachuu qabu. Those that are going to those components that are going to be managed our storage. Lastly, the fourth component is disk storage jiraachuu qabu. Kun hundi walitti dabalamanii storage useriin jiraatanii query processor in adda addaa jiraatanii query processor sana component adda addaa qabaanne then storage manager immoo storage keenya akkamitti akka manage goonu component on storage manage godhan jiraatanii achii booddee kanatti fufuudhaan disk storage in backs data serial data statistical data dictionary and the index of our data bakka kuufaman data storage jiraatanii component on kun arfanii sub component walitti dabalachuudhaan database system architecture jechuudha. Generally, design kana component maaltu barbaachisa? How they are going to interact with each other kana beekneenaan database system architecture salphaatti nu galachuudha chapter kana keessatti. Taane level of database schema. Database description ini level meeqa qaba? External level, user interface level akka ta'e achi booddee conceptual level. Conceptual level is going to be what data is going to be. Data akkamiitu database keenya keessatti akka store ta'uu deemu. Then the internal level is how data is going to be stored in the database. Database is akkamitti data akkamitti store ta'u. Then storage space akkamitti allocate akka goonuu fi level of database schema keessatti ilaalleerra. Isaanis jechuun external level, external database schema level, conceptual database schema level, then internal database schema level jechuudha. And then database model, data model, structure, the concept that describes the structures of the database and the rules that the database is going to be obey. Data modeling on a right? The schema and instance, schema of the data, schema to description of the database describes how our data is going to be put in the database. Then instance, the occurrence of the database, the state. The actual moment, the actual data we are inserting in the database at the moment means that database instance we have seen about this. Continuing with this, we have discussed about data definition language and generally database language, data definition language, and the data manipulation language. Okay, data definition language for defining our data, such like create, alter and drop the database operations that may be performed in data definition language and also data manipulation language. Data manipulation language is querying, generally querying and accessing our database. Means that about making what? Inserting, updating, deleting the data in our database. Then the basic characteristics of data models. The good data model should be complete, it should be no redundancy. It follows the business rules. It should be communicable. It should be well organized way. Okay. If there is any question, unclear idea, comment, suggestion, you can put your comment on the link below or my YouTube channel. Okay, and also we can you can comment whatever you want. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.